Hey, this is Mike Robbins. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the podcast. Hope you're doing well, you, your family, your team, everyone around you. I want to talk today about this idea of giving generously and not keeping score. So, my friend and colleague Josh Linkner has this as a mantra, as a value, as something that he talks about and speaks about and writes about. And he's one of the co-founders of an organization and a community called Impact 11 that I was a part of this past year. And that phrase, that concept, that idea, give generously and don't keep score, has been a big part of the building and the growing of this community. And, I've thought about this quite a bit over the course of the year. And it's not like I've never heard this concept or this phrase specifically, although in the context of thinking about it with friends and colleagues and fellow speakers and thought leaders that I've been partnering with and getting to know and networking with and learning together with, I had to really, and have had to more recently really confront some of my own resistance to this, quite frankly, some of the challenge that I have around it. And while I consider myself to be a relatively generous person, that's definitely a value of mine. I find that it actually at times, it has been and can be more challenging for me to be generous. And at times, as much as I don't like to admit it, I keep score more than I'd like to. So I want to talk a bit about this, why this can be challenging, but also why it's so important if we really can get ourselves into that mindset, if we can lead and work and operate from this place of giving generously and not keeping score. If we can infuse that into our teams, into our families, into our communities, there's so much benefit to it. There's so much that becomes available because generosity really fuels connection, trust, it fuels possibility. When we keep score, however, tracking like who gave what and who owes us what and are we getting enough back? Well, understandable, it turns generosity into transactions instead of what it really can be, the meaningful, powerful energy that it is. So let's talk a little bit about why it can be difficult to be generous. And again, most people that I know either consider themselves or at least would like to be generous. Most environments that we're in, most teams, if we say, hey, this team is really generous or people are generous of spirit, I don't think there's too many people that would argue with that being a positive thing, right? It's like kindness, it's like compassion, it's like these are values and ideals that most of us, I think, hold in high regard. And it can be challenging, especially when we really start getting into the nitty gritty of work and of business and of money and finances and things, right? It's like, wait a second, we've all been burned before. We've all been generous with people, not just about money, but things where it's like, hey, I constantly was helping this friend and it felt like they weren't really reciprocating and that felt weird. Or in business, again, we're constantly offering advice or mentorship or referrals or suggestions or support and we're not getting it back. And then it's like, wait a minute, that's feeling out of balance, right? Most of the healthiest relationships we have, both professionally and personally, there's some reciprocity, there's some balance of it. So, and again, we live in a world in which, for better or worse, people keep score all the time. We're constantly keeping score about lots of things. Again, I come from the world of sports where we literally keep score to see who wins the game and how are people doing in the course of the season. And so we're tracking numbers and data. When we think about our professional lives, we're keeping score based on how are we doing, based on the goals, based on the plan, based on the budget for the year. So this idea of keeping score in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when we do it with other humans, we do it with the people we work with and live with, that can start to get a little tricky, right? And again, some of us have been burned, some of us have had negative experiences, some of us maybe like I grew up in a house where there was quite a bit of scarcity. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of resources. My mom was a single mom raising two kids. I grew up in a community and an environment in Oakland where a lot of people were struggling financially and otherwise. So there wasn't a lot of abundance mindsets, if you will, or it's not that people weren't generous, but there was this fear, understandable and realistic fear of like, there's not enough to go around. How generous can I be if I'm having a hard time taking care of myself and my family, right? What's the saying? Like, charity begins at home. So again, there's a lot of reasons why and resistances to not that we resist generosity for the sake of it, but just like it can be scary. It's vulnerable. It's a risk. If I'm generous with you, it's possible you could take advantage of me. It's possible you could not reciprocate. It's possible that I might give something away that I ultimately might need at some point. And so it's tricky, right? Real generosity comes from abundance, not expectation. And for many of us, myself included, it can be challenging at times to come from a genuine place of abundance, especially if things are feeling a bit scarce or we're feeling scared, right? Ironically, though, when we stop keeping score, as tricky as that can be, we often end up receiving more, weirdly. So, as we think about this, right, it's important to understand that there's a difference in mindset between giving and trading. Sometimes trading is important, right? Like when I was a kid, I used to trade baseball cards. There's trades that happen all the time in life that we're sort of bartering. And when you trade, you want to get back something, commensurate to what you gave away, right? I mean, again, think of sports. You trade, the superstar player from one team to another team, and maybe you get four players back because that one player was so good, but you want it to be of equal value or feel fair, right? And in life, sometimes we're trading things or we're bartering or we are transacting with other people. Maybe we have an agreement with a friend that we do business with. We're going to share leads and referrals with each other, if you will, right? With each other. But like, again, we'd like for that to be somewhat reciprocal because so that it feels like a fair trade. Um, if not, it's just going to feel out of balance. And again, we want to think about this and understand when we're trading, there are strings attached, which can sometimes create pressure, sometimes create resentment or expectations. When we're giving freely, generously, that creates openness, goodwill, deeper relationships a lot of times, right? Scorekeeping is usually rooted in fear of scarcity, not feeling valued, not feeling like there's enough to go around. So generosity actually can be strategic, although we want it obviously to be authentic, but in leadership, in life, right? Generous leaders often build loyalty, more psychological safety, more trust, more connection with teams, with the people around them. Like teams that model and operate with generosity are much more collaborative and more effective, right? Generosity often encourages people to go above and beyond, not because they have to, but because they want to, right? We feel like, oh, these people have my back. These people are looking out for me. These people are generously engaging with me. I want to do the same. And sometimes it can be tricky, right? I have a really good friend, speaker friend of mine, Ross Bernstein, who's amazing. I love Ross. He's incredible. And he's so generous in so many ways, generous of spirit, generous of time, generous, just such a good human. And he's often sending leads and referrals and connections my way, which I very much appreciate. But like so much so that I actually said to him a couple of weeks ago, Ross, like I I can't reciprocate in the same way. Like I practically speaking don't have as many referrals and leads to send back your way as you're sending my way. And I noticed that was a weird resistance that I had to generosity. Like if someone's giving more to me, then I feel like I'm giving back to them. Sometimes it's not that I feel unworthy per se, but I feel uncomfortable or awkward or like, and Ross said to me again, completely in alignment with his incredibly generous personality, like, Mike, I'm not keeping score, man. I'm doing this because I want to. Like, of course, I'm open to receiving referrals back from you, but this isn't like we're not keeping tallies here. And I so appreciate him saying that because not only did it take some pressure off me, but I just appreciated the wisdom, the insight, the perspective, like genuinely coming from that generous spirit. Because scorekeeping can damage trust. It turns relationships into ledgers. It makes people feel judged often instead of really appreciated. It can lead to that mentality of like, I'm doing more than others, and that can sort of erode morale. And look, sometimes in life we are doing more work than other people, again, or we're giving to someone more so than they're giving to us. But if we come from that place of generosity, that idea of giving generously, not keeping score, and we're doing it from a place of choice, then like it's not that it doesn't matter what may come back or what may be reciprocated, but that's not why we're doing it, right? And if I'm giving to you because I'm expecting something back, it's not wrong, bad, evil. It just means it's probably there's a lack of genuineness in the generosity, right? Because generosity actually creates abundance. Weirdly, when we give of our time, when we give of our attention, when we give appreciation, when we offer help to other people without doing it in order to get something in return, we actually expand what's possible. It reminds us, we're sort of sending a message to the universe, I have enough, right? Which is important. It does invite organic reciprocity. But again, we're not doing it in order to for the reciprocity. That's a trade. That's a transaction. And we just want to understand the difference, right? It's hard to be truly generous and truly resentful at the same time. So it's also important, though, to remember that we can give generously, but also have some boundaries. We don't want to burn ourselves out. So we want to give intentionally, not compulsively. Sometimes I've noticed in my life that I will give, but maybe sometimes I'm expecting something in return, which is one piece. Maybe sometimes I'm doing it because I want to seem like a good person or I want people to go, wow, that Mike, he's so generous, which again isn't the worst thing in the world, but there can be a compulsiveness to it. And if we over give, then we can start to get burned out. We can start to get resentful. So if we do set some healthy boundaries around it, right? Like sometimes I go through phases where I'm offering my time, hey, if I can help you out, let me know. But if a lot of people are reaching out to me and wanting my help, wanting my support, wanting my advice, but it's taking away from my ability to take care of myself or my clients or my family or whatever, I might have to set some boundary and say, hey, can we talk in a month or can we limit this a little bit? That doesn't mean that generosity isn't genuine. It just means like there's only so many hours in the day, right? So when we set those boundaries, we can be generous from a place of strength, not depletion. It would be like, you might be someone who wants to donate lots of money, which is a beautiful thing. But like if you're donating so much money that you're running out of your own money and you can't pay your own bills, like what's happening? You know what I mean? Like charity begins at home, right? That idea. And remember that giving generously, this is super important and challenging for a lot of us, also includes ourselves. Are we being generous with ourselves? Are we giving generously to ourselves? So, what are some things we can do? What are some specific actions that you can take to expand your capacity for generosity, authentic generosity, giving generously, not keeping score? Here's a few specific things. One thing you can do is today, give at least one compliment or an expression of appreciation with no expectation for anything in return. Just as soon as you get done listening or watching this episode, send a text. You can even do it right now if you can multitask it, right? But you know what I mean? Like send a text, make a phone call, send an email, see someone around in the office or at home or wherever, or even just a stranger at a Starbucks or whatever. Give a compliment that you mean genuinely, an expression of appreciation without any expectation in return. The second thing you can do is offer to help someone at work or in life purely because you can. Not because you're expecting them to help you in return, not because you want anything back, but just offer. And, they can say yes or no, but just offer support, offer help just because you can. A third thing, and this one is really important and profound, but challenging. See if you can let go of one silent score that you've been keeping. Look, we all keep score to some degree, some of us more than others, right? But who's someone you're keeping score with about something? Related to work, related to money, related to time, related to parenting, related to health, related to whatever the thing is. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to post about it on social media, but just see if you can let go of one. Something quietly, silently that you're keeping score, let it go, and then just notice how that feels. Don't judge yourself. And if it's hard to let go of, you can move on to a different one that's a little easier, but just let go of one. Another thing you can do, and again, this one can be profound and potentially challenging, but practice doing a generosity reset in a relationship that's felt transactional. Now, it may be that, again, you just do it silently in your mind. You just reset it, and I'm going to shift out of transactional mode with this person. I'm just going to give more generously and not think about keeping score or what might be coming back in terms of reciprocity. Maybe it's someone you're really close with and you want to actually talk to them about it. You want to have a sweaty palm conversation with them and say, hey, look, it feels like things have gotten transactional with us. And, can we do it? Can I do a reset? I want to be authentically generous with you and not constantly just expecting that it's going to be sort of quid pro quo. And then the fifth thing that you can do, and I mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but like be generous with yourself. Time, rest, forgiveness, well-being? Like, what would generosity towards yourself be? What if you weren't setting things up transactionally? Like, I'll rest once I accomplish XYZ. Now, look, sometimes we do that to motivate ourselves, or but you know what I mean? Like, what if you just rested because you wanted to rest? What if you just forgave yourself because you wanted to forgive yourself? What if you just looked at your schedule and said, you know what, I'm going to give myself a little more time in between things and be a little more generous with that? I don't know. But practice being generous with yourself. So, those five things: give a compliment, offer to help someone at work or in life, let go of one silent score you've been keeping, practice that generosity reset, and be generous with yourself. Look, generosity is powerful, but it can get complicated. It can be tricky, right? Especially when we keep score, which we do, and we don't feel like we're given what we want in return or what we deserve, But like, what if we had more freedom to just be generous, to not keep score, to come from that place of abundance, that place of enoughness? Think of the impact we could have on the people around us. Think of the impact it would have on our teams, our families, our groups. Think of the shift it could create in our own mind about how we relate to life, to relationships, to work, to money, to you name it. See what happens. Give generously. Don't keep score, and see what becomes available. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. As always, feel free to check out the links below in the show notes if you want to learn more about me or my work. Best place to do that is at our website, which is mike-robbins.com. We always appreciate when you hit the follow or the subscribe button. And until next time, keep bringing your whole self to work and to life. And remember, we're all in this thing together.